Where do I put my hands?
I don't like tables.
I'm past tense. I've moved on. I'm past tense.
Hello, beautiful friends! Today I have a special guest with me. This is Sean!
Hi.
Everyone say hi, Sean. Hi, Sean. Tell us an interesting fact about yourself.
I've kissed an alligator.
Whoa. Sean is here today because we were talking about the recent school shooting in Florida and wanted to talk to you guys about that. We kind of wanted to talk about why it happens and how you might be able to help.
I read a statistic that says there have been 13 shootings at schools in this year alone.
It's scary to think that could happen at any time.
And especially, I think back to the most recent church shooting. The one down in Texas that I believe claimed 22 lives. And it's scary as Christians who go to church regularly that someone can walk in with a gun, and it raises a good question on what do you do?
To know what to do, you kind of have to have a cause. Like, have to know what the cause is, like why people do what they do. I mean, that's part of it.
I think that's a good point because, to me, when you think about, you hear the debate of, should we ban certain types of firearms? Should we place armed guards in front of schools and outside of churches? To me, that seems that you're extinguishing the flames to a fire, when really we could be focusing on the people behind the guns and what they're thinking and what their motives are and how to prevent that.
Yeah, like what drove them to that point and what were they trying to accomplish in doing that.
Right. And those questions have been raised by the media when the news kind of first broke.
Yeah.
And in my head, and I kind of thought, well, here we go again. Here's another long, drawn-out debate on guns and what assault rifles actually are and what they're not.
And there's a time for policies and there's a time for emotions and mourning the losses that people have suffered. But I think it's also hard for people who were involved to not see change happen. Because if you go through something like that, you don't want anyone else to have to go through it.
So going back to the question on why and a little bit of what to do, mental health brings up a whole new can of worms, for lack of a better term. How to, I guess, identify that someone needs help in a way. From what I hear, that there were signs with this one that the shooter had trouble in school, that he'd been expelled a few times, and that the people who were kind of close to him say, there was something different about him.
He threatened other students. That's why he was expelled, right?
Yeah.
So I think that brings up the point that if you know someone who's struggling with something, whether it be violent tendencies, which is kind of the extreme, or depression, or severe anxiety, or anything like that, you shouldn't feel like you can't talk to them, because even if you don't know exactly what to say, just having someone reach out to them could help. I think going through any type of mental illness, you feel very alone a lot of the time. And so just having someone reach out to you and seeing that someone cares enough and notices that you're struggling, I think could help.
To go along with that, speaking to someone and raising, awareness to a teacher or to someone with authority that can say, hey, how you doing? Are things okay?
Especially because you can help to a certain point, but at the same time, there are people who are trained to handle this, and they are trained to recognize signs of something that could develop into a more dangerous condition, and they know how to handle that, and you probably don't. So don't be afraid to speak to authority as well as your friend, and maybe even a stranger. A stranger's just a friend away.
But I would also encourage you to be brave and speak out to that person directly, too, because I know that sometimes kids or really anybody who are going through some type of struggle may not want to talk to anyone who's in authority. They might want to talk to a peer. You know, they might want to talk to a classmate or coworker or someone who's kind of on their level that they feel more comfortable with.
Yeah.
Rather than saying, hey, you should go to the guidance counselor. You could sit down and be like, hey, I'm willing to listen. Listening is a skill that we're losing. We tend to talk a lot before we ever listen.
As Christians, it's part of our duty, I guess, to show love to people, and I think part of that is reaching out to people. But we also know that at our core, we're bad. We're all born sinners, and Psalms tells us that no one is righteous, not even one. And that is very apparent at times.
You know, I believe that, and I often tell people when they say, you know, non-Christians, where they say that, well, how can God allow these mass killings? You know, how can God allow, you know, these terrible things to happen?
The evil things in the world.
Right. And I say that God has a plan, and I believe that good comes out of these situations.
Yeah, there's definitely comfort and peace and security knowing that God has a plan and that nothing that man can do can mess up God's plan. In fact, God uses man and his tendency to sin and mess up to fulfill his plan.
We know as Christians that God is good, and he is loving, and he's always faithful. And it's a good point to bring up, I think. That's why I'm bringing it up. That everyone can be reached by God, and you can never outrun God. So, if you feel like someone is lost, and you feel like they're beyond your reach, know that they are not beyond God's reach. And you might not see what you do as important, but it could be vastly affecting their life. You know, you think about people in your own life who you look up to by the way they live their lives.
The way you live your life is a direct reflection of Christ, and that's a lot of the point of this channel, living as light, so that people can look at you and say, there's something different about them, and I want to be part of that. And just you living your life and being an example can be a way of showing people Christ and reaching out to them.
In summary,
conclusion time!
So we just felt the need to share this with you guys. There's going to be a lot of negative media floating around, a lot of arguing and a lot of debate on whether you should ban guns altogether, if you should keep them. So we just felt the need to put some positive light on the internet and say that God is good and he has a plan for everything, and you may very well be a part of that plan in how you approach someone, how you talk to someone, even if it's just walking past somebody who God has placed upon your heart, and just saying hi to them, saying, hey, how's your day? How's it going?
Yeah.
I don't think we ever see what materializes from that, but that could really just brighten someone's day, knowing that someone who they've never talked to said hello.
It's not all about policies and debates. Change can happen in subtle ways. So go live as light, friends. Bye! Bye. It's so much better to sit on your feet. Like, I don't understand you.
This is going swimmingly.
This is why.
This is how it usually goes.
Yeah. You're supposed to be the one who's messing up.